On today's video, we're going to be talking all about leverage. So whether that's leveraging people's time or whether it's leveraging money, in particular mortgages to buy investment properties, that's what we're going to be discussing today. And most investors who are serious about building wealth through a property portfolio, the chances are they're going to do it a lot quicker if they use mortgages as leverage. So we hope to explain that in a little bit more detail about why it's a good idea and why it's a strategy that Neil and I take. So I hope that you'll find this useful. So my name is Mark Ashworth. I've been investing since 2012.
I'm Neil Harding. I've been investing since 2005.
So quite a few years experience between us. So let's get on with it, Neil. Let's talk about leveraging. I think probably the easy one to talk about is leveraging people's time. Obviously lots of companies and businesses do that all the time, and I'm sure many of you have worked for employers and it's exactly what they're doing, leveraging their time with yours. So quite commonplace.
Yeah, that's really good point. I mean, I think there are different types of leverage that you can get, and I think mostly people talk about leverage of money, and we'll talk about that in a lot of detail. But yeah, there's leveraging time, there's leveraging other people's knowledge and expertise, and leveraging money. I would say they're probably the main types in relation to property investing. You've mentioned some there about leveraging time and leveraging knowledge. I think if you're going on a training course or you have a mentorship program, or even if you're speaking to a mortgage broker and you're asking them to advise you on the best mortgage that you could take, they might not be charging you for that, but effectively you're leveraging their knowledge maybe as well as their time, and to sort of accelerate your investing. But the main one, I think, is probably leveraging money.
Yeah, I was just going to mention on the people leveraging front is when you do a refurb, right? So I'm sure most people, they may be handy, but they're certainly not going to have electrical safety qualifications or gas safety qualifications. So when you do your refurb and you get your gas engineer to come fit a new heating system, you're essentially leveraging their time and expertise to put that in correctly and compliantly, but also a damn sight quicker than you could do it yourself. And that might include decorators, plasterers, carpet fitter, all these other things that you get them to do and help you to do that project. And obviously if you manage it correctly, or you might even get a project manager, let's say, where you might leverage their time because they'd be a lot more efficient at doing it than you might, particularly if you're running a business of your own, or you've got a well-paid professional career. You might just want to invest in property, but you want to leverage out those extra jobs and things that you can't handle yourself and get that done by somebody else who knows better. But yeah, I think most people that click on this video are probably going to want to know about the leveraging the finance bit, so we'll get more involved.
Money.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget that when you're leveraging other people's money, a lot of people talk about private investor finance, don't they, when they think about leveraging other people's money, use other people's money to buy property. But it's really the simplest way to leverage other people's money is a bank's money.
Yeah.
A buy-to-let mortgage is the most common and probably always will be. And it's still other people's money. And it's a really important tool for an investor.
So let's look at the reasons why that's good. Well, typically they're obviously unbiased and they will do their own due diligence on it, and they're in the business of lending money. I mean, that's what they do. They make money by lending money. So they're going to send somebody out, they're going to send a valuer out, they're going to check to see whether the property is on a piece of land and that it's built correctly and that it has a value, and then they will lend a certain amount of money against that, typically interest-only mortgage. Typically you just, on an investment property, most people want to have some cash flow at the end of each month. And so the beauty of the whole leveraging thing with an interest-only mortgage is that you get a fantastic way that inflation, and we're going through a massive inflationary period right now, where inflation is essentially eating away at your debt. So over time, as inflation increases, or it's even if it stabilizes, there's still an element of inflation every year, which erodes the value of the debt. So each year that the pound loses value, it's losing that value on the money that you've borrowed. And so that is a wonderful thing from an investment perspective. But from a leveraging point of view, I think we've got some interesting calculations that we can look at.
Yeah, we'll throw some numbers at it. It's quite useful.
Yeah. So that what we're trying to look at is what's the difference with buying a property in cash in full versus buying more than one property with the same cash but using mortgages against them. Yeah,
that's right. So let's create a scenario where you're a property investor with £200,000 of cash in the bank and you're looking to invest in residential property. So with £200,000, you could, let's say, buy one house worth £200,000, or divide that up into 4 pots of £50,000, being 4 deposits at a 75% loan to value, and get 4 mortgaged houses and do it that way instead. And that's certainly the way that I started out investing in property. You're leveraging with debt, you're investing. So let's just run through some numbers and see where you end up at the end of year 1, depending on which path you've taken. If you've bought a house with cash for £200,000, you could estimate that maybe you'll have made, I'm going to say £12,000 a year rental profit. Don't forget there's no mortgage interest repayment, so most of your rental income, less a few costs, of course, buildings, insurance and what have you, repairs and maintenance, but let's just say you make £12,000 in rental profit at the end of year 1, and let's assume, for argument's sake, that house prices have gone up by 5%, which is approximately a long-term average for the UK. So on a house worth 200,000, 5% growth is your house is worth £210,000 at the end of that year. So you've made £10,000 in capital appreciation and you made £12,000 in rental profit. So a total of 22,000. That's obviously not cash flow. It's just total wealth. Looking at the total return, you've made 22 grand. Okay.
Not bad.
Not bad at all for your 200,000. It's not bad at all. Let's say that you decided instead to buy 4 properties and you took 75% loan to value mortgages. Well, what you've then got is 4 properties worth £800,000, okay? And that 5% house price growth translates to an additional £40,000 in capital appreciation. I'm going to assume, for simplicity's sake, that you've made £3,000 rental profit on each of those 4 properties because you've got mortgage interest, and then that adds up to £12,000 in rental profit for the 4 properties, okay, which is conveniently the same number as what you would have made on one. But so £12,000 rental profit again, but you've made £40,000 in capital appreciation, so £52,000 total return versus the 22 in the previous example. So 30k difference. It's a lot, and that's after 1 year. So if you compound that year after year, that's where it gets
exciting, right? Yeah,
massively. Yeah, you compound that difference over and over again over years, 5 years, 10 years, 15, and you're reinvesting those gains in a sensible way. Don't overreach. Don't over leverage yourself, because it's just a trap. You know, I wouldn't ever go more than 75% on a leverage on a property, and certainly not across your whole portfolio. You can see with the power of leverage how that wealth creation, the compounding impact over years, can really create impactful long-term wealth for people.
And obviously the other thing that we were talking about earlier about saying that inflation erodes the debt. So every year the house price is going up. So let's say if it does go up by 5% each year, every year that you have that property. And, you know, typically when you talk to property investors, all of us, and trainers as well, to be fair, are all encouraging people to look at this on a long-term play. It's a 10, 15, 20, 30 year strategy that you're doing with, particularly with single lets, right? But the interesting thing is when you get to say year 10 and your property's worth, let's say 350,000, I would doubt it would double every 10 years. Remember, your original 75% loan to value at 200,000 is still 150,000. So now you've got £150,000 mortgage product on a property worth £350,000. So then what's that going to look like 10 years after that and 10 years after that? That's why property investors use mortgages, because over time the value of the pound decreases, and so therefore it erodes the value of the debt, which is fantastic. So really, if you are planning to do this and you're planning to buy 10, I mean, it doesn't really matter how many properties you buy, but at the end of the time, you can then potentially use the sale of a couple of those properties to basically pay off the mortgages on the rest of it. We hope that has made leveraging seem a far more attractive way of investing in property, certainly from a finance perspective. So we do hope that you found that insightful, and we'll see you on the next one.